Hello, everyone. Welcome to this year's Elevate Marketing Summit. My name is Valerie Fischer, and I help new online business owners increase revenue growth with brain science selling. What is brain science selling actually? It is a combination of my neuro-linguistic programming background. So I am a certified neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. I also have 20 years of experience in corporate marketing and advertising, as well as a co-founder of an e-commerce site here in the Philippines. So last year, at the start of the pandemic, I lost my job as a chief marketing officer in a real estate company here in the Philippines. And, during that time, of course, everything was uncertain. I was scared. I mean, who would it be, right? But then my friends, my family, former colleagues started asking for my help. They knew I was handling an e-commerce site. They also knew I was, I used to be with marketing and advertising. And when they started asking for my help, it made me realize that I have something to offer. That combination of my NLP, marketing and advertising, as well as the e-commerce and digital sales, those three combined can actually be used to help entrepreneurs like family and friends and former colleagues with their sales, with their business. And so that's what inspired me to come up with brain science selling. So it's a unique process that I have with a combination of the three. When I became a practitioner in 2018, I've always been, I really started becoming curious on how I can use NLP, the techniques that I learned from that certification, to marketing. So when I became an entrepreneur myself and a trainer and coach consultant, that's where I was able to incorporate all of them together. And that is what I'm going to share with you today. So it's a framework. It's a very basic framework of brain science selling, which I call PRIME. So PRIME. That is what I am going to share with you today, the PRIME framework. These techniques that I will be sharing with you today have actually gotten results for my students and for my clients. Some got them leads in minutes, leads in minutes. And one of my clients, the team was able to sell 3 condominium units in 10 days using the framework that I will be sharing with you today. One of my followers, so follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. He follows me on Facebook, even without a proper training. Just following my tips, my techniques. I have many trainings there. I host many trainings there. He was also able to sell condominium units just by following the framework. So let's start with letter P. The letter P actually stands for priming or subliminal seeding. I see a lot of brands, a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners in the digital space, just posting new offers or new products or services without preparing their prospects, minds into receiving these new products and services. So what priming does is it prepares the minds of your buyers, of your prospects, of your customers into accepting your new product, course, service, etc. There was a study by John Barg, a Yale University professor, and in that study, so this is what they did. So 41 volunteers were tricked to holding a drink while walking from the lobby to the laboratory. Then they were asked to rate fictional characters, the warmth of the fictional characters from 1 to 7. So these 41 volunteers, half of them were given cold drinks. The other side of the respondents, they were given hot drinks. And they found out that volunteers holding the warm drink rated the fictional characters as 11% warmer. 11% warmer. What does this mean? So hot drinks promote warm feelings. So hot drinks promote warm feelings. So knowing that hot drinks promote warm feelings. So if, for example, you are meeting a client, when the world opens up, you're meeting a client, or you have an open house in your showroom, if you're a car salesman or if you're in real estate, you have to serve warm drinks, because chances are of accepting your product becomes much bigger than when you serve them cold drinks. So because hot drinks promote warm feelings. There was also a study done about 20 years ago where a restaurant was serving German and French wine. Okay, so German and French wine. And the study found that whenever this restaurant plays French music, more French wine were sold. And then when German music was played, more German wine was sold. But when you ask the people around in that area, the ones that are in the restaurant, when you ask them if they even remember the music that was being played, they will say that they didn't even know. So it was so subtle, the persuasion or the influence that the music gave to that environment for them to buy more of the French or more of the German wine. It was so subtle that the customers didn't even notice, but they were persuaded to buy a specific product. You can do that on the digital space. How do you do that? For example, when you have webinars, if you want to create an energetic crowd, or if you want to have a yoga session, so you match the music to the kind of vibe, to the kind of energy that you want to elicit from your viewers. Or if you want them to feel motivated to buy, then you can also use music to prime your customers into buying from you. I actually used priming myself when I sold my very first Mentor Mind program. So it's a small group coaching session. It was a combination of my digital products plus weekly coaching sessions. So what I did, I did not even have a sales page for this. Okay, I didn't even have a sales page. It was not on the website. It was I just sold this on my Facebook group. So what did I do? 2 weeks prior to my launch of this Mentor Mind program, I was already posting things about you are your best investment, or will you wait? Are you going to wait until 2 weeks prior to my launch? I was already posting things about you are your best investment, or don't wait for the next opportunity, or grab the next opportunity that comes to you. So I was already preparing their minds, preparing their feelings for my program. And then I was also showing them results from my clients, from my students, from my mentees. It was done in a very subtle way, 2 weeks prior. And on that day that I launched my Mentor Mind program, 30 minutes, it was sold out without a sales page, without a website, without a cost. I just said, if you're interested, send me a message and I will tell you how much it costs. They signed up even without knowing how much. That is how effective priming is. The letter R in PRIME, the PRIME framework, stands for rapport. Okay, rapport. We have to remember, people like other people who are like them. People like other people who are like them. Oprah, and I will paraphrase this, she said that the start of great communication is connection. And how do you connect? You connect through rapport. In NLP, or in neuro-linguistic programming, we have what we call mirroring. So mirroring is honoring the other person's values or belief system. You honor them and you tell them, yes, I agree with you, or I am like you. That's mirroring. And in the digital space, you can do the same. So how do you do that? Number one, do your research. Do your research before you even put out any content or copy. You find out what your clients, what do they say? What are the words that they use? Google, if you are into locally made products, Google and research on locally made products. What do the clients say? What words do they use? Or if you're into real estate, which words do the potential clients or the prospects, what do they use? What are their pains? What are their problems? How do they see this industry? Now, when you know that, you use that same word, those same words, the same paragraphs, the same situation, and use it back to them and offer your product as a solution to those problems. It is, again, it's an example of mirroring. So you mirror back to them their problems, except this time you offer your product or your service as a solution. Another way of doing this is asking questions, like actually asking questions. If you have a Facebook group or a Facebook page or an Instagram account, ask your clients, ask your followers, whoever is on those accounts that are your clients, your niche, ask them what they want. Ask them what they think and what they feel about you. And then again, use those words back to them. You mirror the words back to them, and that will create rapport. They will think that you are reading their minds, when in fact, you actually ask them that those ideas, those words, those concepts actually came from them. I stands for intent. So in neuro-linguistic programming, one of our presuppositions is that behavior has always a positive intent behind it. So that's what we believe. We're strong on our belief that even if it's a no, there is a positive intent behind it. How do you use this? How do you use this technique or concept when you sell for your brands or when you manage objections? This is actually how I use this intent. So when a client says no to you, there is always an intent behind it. So you have to find out what the intent is. So for example, a client says no to your offer. What is the intent behind the saying no? It's probably because, the positive intent is the client needs to save up for something, or he's not sure about affordability. So you ask deeper questions on why they decided that way. And then you now address that objection and you offer alternative. You can say, you can offer a different payment scheme. You can offer a 50-50 payment scheme or a 20-30-50. It's really up to you. But that is addressing the intent of I want to save more, or I want to buy but I just can't afford right now because I need to spread out my money. So now that you know the intent, it's better if you will be able to address those objections more properly and more what do you call this, more suitably. Okay. Another way of using intent is yourself as an entrepreneur. So when you meet your client, what is your intent? Do you meet them because you're going to sell to them? Because actually, that's the wrong intent. We have to remember that selling, it's not really selling. We have to have a different mindset about selling. We're not just sellers. We're not there just to sell. We are there to serve. And when you switch that mindset, the shifting of the mindset from a seller's perspective to somebody who wants to be of service, your client, your prospect, your buyer will feel that. And then they will feel like you are really, taking care of them, and that you're really thinking of their needs more than selling. Even when you post something on your social media pages, what is the intent? Is that to connect? Is that to educate? Is that to entertain? Is that to sell? You have to be clear on that intent. Okay, because how do you fire a target if the target itself is not clear to you? So you have to be clear on your target. You have to be clear on your intent. The letter M in the PRIME framework actually stands for two M's, two words. These are both language patterns. One is called meta and the other one is Milton. So meta, we call in NLP chunking down, and then Milton is chunking up. Okay, so chunk down, chunk up. What does that mean? Our brains have mental shortcuts. Okay, we have mental shortcuts. We have patterns because our brains are lazy, so it creates patterns. The sentences we form are actually unconscious productions. These sentences we have been using for the longest time. We're not even aware that that's how we call certain things. That's how we perceive certain situations. The language we use, the words, is limited by our perceived reality because that's how we think, because that's how we were programmed, because that's how our parents brought us up. This meta model, meta model language pattern deals with these distortions in everyday language. Okay, so because what happens because of these shortcuts, we distort, generalize, or delete, okay, certain ideas. We delete ideas, we delete words, we delete reality or distort reality because of the words or the language that we're used to, the language that we were programmed to use. I use the meta programs for handling objections also. Example, so for example, your client will say, my friend said that your product is expensive. My friend said that your product is expensive. When you break down that sentence, you can ask your client, like, who's your friend? Who is that friend who told you? When you ask that, the client will realize or will think that, who is this friend? Is this friend trustworthy? Does this friend have a previous relationship with your brand or with your product? Is this friend's word really something that you can trust? Then the client will now ask himself, wait a minute, is this really true? So that's one. And then another one is the word expensive. Expensive is, relative. When they say that, you can ask your client, what is expensive? What is expensive to you? Now, when you know that, then you can now offer it, okay, offer your product in terms of value versus price. because you were able to really filter what it is that your client really meant, or your client's words were really distorted. His or her perceived reality is distorted. And you will know that by the words that they use. The Milton language, on the other hand, is what we call the hypnotic language. So when I said meta, it's really drilling down into what your client means when they say something. You ask questions. You, as I said, like in intent, you drill down. What is the deeper intent? What is the deeper meaning? What is the deeper intention of the words that they use? On the other hand, Milton is the opposite. It is hypnotic language. This language allows you to be artfully vague, okay? Artfully vague, so that your subject can create their own meaning, okay? They can create their own meaning. So one of the examples of Milton language pattern is called mind reading. So the mind reading claims to have the ability to know what someone is thinking or feeling, okay? What someone is thinking or feeling. One of the examples of hypnotic language is mind reading. Mind reading claims to have the ability to know what someone is thinking or feeling. So that's one, mind reading. And that happens when you try to create rapport by using their words back at them, like what I mentioned earlier. Another example of hypnotic language is tag questions. Tag questions, example, you have been feeling frustrated by the lack of action from colleagues. You want to step in as a leader, don't you? So you ask your client back, and then they will think, do I really? I think yes. So they put their own meaning into those words. You can also use this hypnotic language example, so building excitement and expectations. So an example of this is, in a few minutes, I am going to tell you the best brain science tip you will ever hear. And the word best, it will really depend on what your client, how your client describes or defines best. And that builds up excitement. That also is an example of priming. Emotion. Finally, we get to the last letter of our prime framework, emotion. So that's E. People buy emotionally and then they justify logically. 95% people, okay, 95 people buy emotionally 95% of the time. Okay, we have to remember that. So why now? Why then, when we post our products or services, we post them in terms of numbers, in terms of logic, in terms of discounts, in terms of sale? But really, what we have to really be thinking about is the emotional benefit to them. So instead of posting about features, how many pools does this condominium have, how many pockets, how much this costs, what is the discount, you can use, okay, so use these features but turn them into benefits. So what is the benefit of the sale? This discount will give you this much amount so that you can add it to your mortgage. This discount will give you this savings to add to your kids' tuition. That's the benefit. Okay, so that's the benefit, and that is why your client will decide to buy your product or service, not because of the logic, not because of the discount, but what it will give them as a benefit. Another example of selling using emotions is by highlighting the desires. Okay, the desires. In my NLP and copywriting course, I have what I call the 7 deadly sins. The 7 deadly sins simply because, you know, these are the sins. We sin because we desire something. There is a feeling attached to it. Example, if I tell you most of your friends have already invested in property or invested in stocks, Don't you think it's about time that you do the same? Without even mentioning the brand, I am already priming the client, the person I am talking to buy my product or my service by touching on his or her pride. His or her pride, because I don't want to be the last of my batch, the last of my friends to be investing. That's envy. That's a feeling. That's a desire. That's an emotion. And that's how we should be selling online. So many ways that you can do this. You can do this on video. You can do this on copy. You can do this on design. So that's number 2. So number 1 is focus on benefits, not features. Number 2 is you highlight the desires. And number 3 is you describe in full modality. I recently wrote an article about brain science, marketing, and Korean TV drama. So if you're a fan of Korean TV drama, you will know that these shows give you full modality. What do I mean by full modality? It's visual, it's auditory, the sounds are real, the music is so good. So visual, auditory, kinesthetic, the feelings, they normally show the seasons. They will show if it's cold, if it's hot, if it's spring season, they will show that. So it's a feeling. And then there's also olfactory and gustatory. Most of the Korean TV drama shows they include their drinks, their food. That's olfactory and gustatory. So it's in full modality, all the 5 senses. What can you now learn from that? When you promote a product or a service, you describe also in VACOG. That's what we call it in neurolinguistic programming. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. So that's how you should describe your product. You make it come alive. You put a taste to it. You put a feel to it. You put sounds around it. That is how you should sell your product. So that's it. That is my PRIME framework: priming, rapport, intent, Meta and Milton, emotion. Those are the concepts. Those are the NLP, neuro-linguistic programming concepts that you can use for marketing and for digital marketing in particular, that I include in my brain science selling. So you want to work with me, you can go to my website, www.valeriefischer.net. You can also follow me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on Instagram. So thank you very much, everybody. And I hope that you are enjoying our Elevate Marketing Summit. And I will see you again soon. Thank you.